Good morning, and welcome to the devotional thoughts for this second day of February 2022. Let's begin with a scripture. But we are bound to give thanks always to God for you, brethren, beloved of the Lord, because God hath from the beginning chosen you to salvation through sanctification of the Spirit and belief of the truth. That scripture is taken from Paul's second letter to the Thessalonians, chapter 2 and verse 13. If you're reading the Bible in a year, today you should be focused on Exodus chapters 29 and 30 and Matthew chapter 21 verses 23 to 46. Some thoughts for the day. Am I not destroying my enemies when I make friends of them? Against naked force, the only possible defence is naked force. The aggressor makes the rules for such a war. The defenders have no alternative but to match destruction with more destruction and slaughter with greater slaughter. That's quoted from Franklin Roosevelt, who lived from 1882 to 1945. An important one here, most of the methods of Satan that he uses to confuse and tempt can appear to be very beautiful and very alert. He seems to not be the enemy of God, but the uplifter and edifier of man. And the risk, of course, is that he is in fact not the uplifter and edifier of man, nor is he on God's side. The motivational thought for today: there is a real magic in enthusiasm. It spells the difference between mediocrity and accomplishment. On this day in 1709, the real Robinson Crusoe, Alexander Selkirk, on whom Daniel Defoe based his famous novel, was rescued after spending 5 years on the uninhabited islands of San Juan Fernandez. In 2012, on this day, a cold snap across Europe killed more than 100 people on this day, and it killed over 400 people in the following week. In 2019, more than 40 mummies from the era 323 to 330 BC were found at a burial site at Tuna El Gebel archaeological site south of Cairo in Egypt. Personal story of today is titled In the Right Mind. A good Samaritan turned bad. He saved a woman's life and then he stole her purse. Police reported that a passerby had noticed a distressed woman getting ready to jump off a bridge. The man struggled with the woman until she broke free, and then she fell back onto the concrete and knocked herself unconscious. That's when the surprise came. According to witnesses, the suspects then grabbed the woman's purse and ran off. The man's outrageous behaviour illustrates the pattern of the Pharisees. They too seemed ready to go to the rescue of others. You can read about that in Matthew 23 and verse 15. They were advertised as men of prayer, men of the scriptures, champions of the faith, and helpers of the needy. But the intentions of their hearts revealed that they were actually thieves and exploiters of people. None of us is above such behaviour. We too can reach out to others with an honest desire to help them, yet underneath we may become more interested and concerned about our own welfare than about theirs. Through faithful prayer, the Lord can ensure that we keep ourselves in the right frame of mind. Devotional thoughts for the day. The first scripture comes from Mark chapter 5 and verse 34. Other references in this thought are from Mark chapter 5 and verses 21 to 34. And he said unto her, Daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace, and be whole of thy plague. We recall that's Jesus speaking to the woman with the issue of blood. One of the greatest social problems facing the nation today is the challenge posed by rising healthcare costs As these costs increase, the number of people who are able to afford insurance cover decreases. This combination of economic factors is a recipe for anxiety, if not disaster. Imagine then what it must have been like in Jesus' day, when there was no insurance, and the practice of medicine was more superstition than science. The woman in the above verse who interrupted Jesus' conversation with Jairus, the synagogue ruler, is a good example. Her plight was social as well as physical. The nature of her condition would have meant that anyone who came into contact with her became ceremonially unclean, according to the law of Moses. The woman was not only troubled by her physical condition, she had also suffered at the hands of the doctors to whom she turned for relief. In the process, she watched her financial resources shrink as her condition grew worse. The medical profession in Jesus' day did not enjoy a good reputation. It was listed as one of the despised trades in the collection of Jewish writings known as the Talmud. In fact, physicians were criticized for being more interested in profit than in the health of their patients. A popular saying of the time declared that even the best doctor was destined for hell. Disappointment and desperation prompted this woman to seek help from Jesus in secret. The measure of her faith is signaled by her certainty that she would be healed. She said, "If I could just touch his clothes." That's in verse 28. Her attempt to steal away unnoticed through the crowd after being healed was revealed when Jesus asked who had just touched him. Although the request of Jairus was an urgent one, Jesus stopped the procession until she came forward and admitted what she had done. The rabbis condemned the physicians of their day because they favoured the rich and powerful. Jesus made Jairus, a man of influence, wait while he pronounced the blessing of peace upon this despised and insignificant woman. Not only did he provide her with the cure they could not, he showed her a compassion that they lacked. The second story is headed Integrity in Jail, and it's about Joseph, who we'll recall was imprisoned in Egypt. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him, and that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. That's from Genesis 39 and verse 23. We're not talking there about the Lord being with the keeper of the prison, by the way. We're talking about the Lord being with Joseph. Joseph had been put in charge of the prison, and so what it basically says is the prison keeper didn't have to worry about anything because Joseph did everything right because the Lord was with him. We've now referred to many of the people of the Lord used who had character flaws. We'll now go back and summarize the background behind a man about whom nothing negative is recorded in the Bible. Joseph truly lived a life of righteousness and integrity. He did it with his mind focused on God and not his circumstances. It is recorded that the Lord was with Joseph and he prospered, Genesis 39 and verse 2. You'll remember that Potiphar promoted him to the highest position of responsibility in his house. It was here that Potiphar's wife propositioned him repeatedly. Opportunity for immorality presented itself to Joseph day after day, but Joseph's focus on God kept him from sin. His refusal included these words, very important words: "How could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" That's in verse 9. He was not asking how he could sin and get away with it. He was not wondering how it would affect Potiphar or his place in the house if he was found out. Instead, his concern was that his behavior, if he sinned, would offend God. In one sense, Joseph's refusal cost him. He was falsely accused and imprisoned. In another sense, though, the self-discipline brought God's continual blessing. Our desire must always be to please God. This involves living a life of righteousness and integrity. The facts of the day: there are 142,000 about recognised species of moths, and scientists estimate that there are thousands more yet to be discovered. In early America, simple wooden beds and straw mattresses were the rule in all but the wealthiest of homes. And in American inns, during the Revolutionary War era, they were not lush or comfortable, and the innkeeper would think nothing of requesting that a guest share his bed with a stranger when accommodation was scarce, certainly not Holiday Inn. A couple of lighter moments to bring us towards the end. Benjamin was in the midst of a long, dry gambling spell in Las Vegas. Eventually, he gambled away all his money, and he had to borrow a quarter from another gambler just to go to the men's room. He found a stall that happened to be open, so he used that and he put the quarter in his pocket. Believing that his luck has finally changed, he put the quarter into a slot machine and hit the jackpot. He took the modest winnings from there and went to the blackjack table and turned it into millions of dollars. Wealthy beyond his wildest dreams, Benjamin went on a lecture circuit and was telling his story about his incredible luck. He told the audience that he would always be eternally grateful to the benefactor. If he ever found the man, he would share the fortune with him. Well, you guessed it. After some months of speaking on the tour, a man in the audience jumped up and said, "I'm that man. I was the one that gave you the quarter." "Oh, yes," said Benjamin, "I remember you well, but you're not the one I'm looking for. I'm looking for the guy that left the stall door open." An elderly man went to the doctor for a visit. "Doc," he says, "I'm so stricken. I have chest pains, I have head pains, I have back pains, I have nausea, arthritis, constipation, stomach cramps, earaches, burning in the eyes, congested lungs." "Wait a minute," said the doctor, interrupting. "Just a minute. You complain you have so many things. It's probably better if you tell me what you don't have." The man thought for a couple of seconds and then said, "Teeth." "I don't have teeth." Okay, let's finish with a closing thought. Remember, everyone has a story to tell, and it's not always a happy one. Look beyond the outward man to find what lies within. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you've enjoyed and been uplifted by what you've heard, and we'll look forward to seeing you again tomorrow morning.